Hello everybody, it's me, Fee, White Zulu, and welcome to another piece from my autobiography of the same name. I left you with the Notting Road Government School, and I'm moving on now to other things, and this one is chapter 25, our Pontiac. Towards the end of the term at the Notting Road Government School, my father having decided that there was no getting away from the fact that he was due to have 4 daughters at St. Anne's the following year, traded in his modest, medium-sized grey Mercedes saloon for an enormous black Pontiac, the size of a tennis court on wheels. It was encrusted with shiny chrome excrescences and had a battery of glowing ruby-coloured brake and tail lights at the back. The rear fins gave the impression of an aircraft carrier's bow and covered a cavernous boot. The front grille looked like a silver grimace flanked by huge twin headlights, and there was plenty of room for our family of 6 on the big leather bench seats, back and front. We arrived at the Notting Road Government School in this apparition on one Monday morning, bouncing awkwardly down the bumpy dirt track to the school and pulling up majestically at the gates, the car still rocking on the soft suspension for some time after we'd come to a standstill. As my sister and I climbed out, every child in the school ran up to the wire fence to have a look. Jaws dropped and eyes boggled as my mother drove off in a flourish of dust. "Is that your new car?" Benny van der Berg asked in hushed tones of awe. "Yes, it's nice, huh?" I said proudly. "Are you proud of your new car?" he gulped, horrified, as if I'd declared I was the spawn of the devil. "Yes," I said steadfastly. Everybody gasped. Other children came up to me to repeat Benny's question, only to look shocked at my answer. Then somebody said, "It's wrong to be proud. It's a sin." I just shrugged and walked off. The Calvinistic beliefs of the Dutch Reformed Church were not going to impinge on my enjoyment. But after that, I noticed 1 or 2 of my classmates casually let slip that they were proud of their own possessions or achievements. The big black car was dubbed Gigi Bayer, which was soon shortened to Gig by my father, named after the large, stout Indian Hindu matrons who wore ornate, glittering and bejewelled saris in bright colours of scarlet, emerald, green and gold, to go shopping in the Durban markets, looking like glorious birds of paradise. The enormous car coped adequately with the rutted, corrugated roads in dry weather, behaving a little bit like a boat on rough seas and causing Nicolette to become car sick for the first time ever. But it was a nightmare in the wet season, slipping and sliding in the slick red mud which constituted our 20 miles of dirt road from the farm into the station. It looked as if it was going to rain, My mother would get Jomela, the Zulu who worked in the garden, to put the chains on the wide balloon-like whitewall tires before we left. And we'd crawl frustratingly slowly clinking and rattling to school. If we were caught out in the frequent sudden spring thunderstorms, which signified the start of the wet season, and which could release a torrent of rain up to several inches within an hour, my mother would have to stop cursing, and we'd all get out reluctantly and wrestle horrible, heavy, clanking chains onto the slippery, muddy wheels. We children would start by laying all 4 sets of chains out on the mire in front of the wheels, hoping that they were the right way up. My mother drove cautiously onto the chains, and we'd yell, "Stop!" when the wheels were in place. Then we'd have to twist stiff, heavy-duty wires, slimy with red mud, through the chains to secure them. A tricky task, because if we got it wrong, the tire stuck up and punctured the wire stuck up and punctured the tire as my mother drove off. And we'd have the added problem of changing the tire and still having to put the chain on. This practice ensured that wherever we went, be it school or anywhere else, we arrived covered from head to foot in red mud, school uniforms or not. Every afternoon, the minute our car pulled into the garage at home, I jumped out and ran to my bedroom to pull off my hideous gingham green check dress, drag the horrible shoes and socks off, and change into jeans and a t-shirt. Barefoot and followed by a pack of 3 mixed variety of excited dogs, I would run to the tack room, snatch Rocket's bridle off its hook on the wall, and race to the paddock where he was grazing with the polo ponies. There, I slipped the bridle over his head, swung myself onto his warm, shining back, and cantered off, the dogs running a safe distance behind his heels, to help the herdsmen, Petrus and Toto, and sometimes Boniface, collect the milking cows from their daylight grazing in the bush beyond the river. Rocket jogged impatiently home behind the cows, full swaying udders and swishing tails, while I chuckled at the antics of the calves' playful bucking at their heels. I could feel the chill of the early evening air nipping at my bare toes as they dangled down either side of Rocket's belly. Toto and Petrus walked on either side of the cattle, carrying their long stock whips over their shoulders and letting out a piercing whistle now and again if a cow started to wander to the roadside to snatch a mouthful of grass. "Iapi!" they would shout, and obediently she'd swing back to join the herd. As we made our way slowly down into the valley, I could see pale blue smoke rising from the kitchen chimney into the still, darkening sky, and drifting downwards in the cooling air, giving off the scent of eucalyptus from the gum trees Masango used as kindling. After leaving Rocket in his paddock with a quick rub down and a handful of oats, I walked into the kitchen to be greeted by the delicious aroma of our Zulu chef's freshly baked bread, which had come out of the oven a little earlier. Masango was seated on the back steps, his chef's hat casually tossed into the wood pile, and was enjoying one of his pungent mixtures of umsango, dacha, or marijuana as it's known in South Africa, and boxer tobacco rolled up in newspapers, joints the size of a sausage. I was ravenous, as I hadn't eaten since a hasty breakfast of porridge at 6 o'clock that morning before leaving for school, and I'd given my lunch to the Van der Bergs, so I furtively sawed a huge hunk of crusty warm bread off the end of the loaf, spread it thickly with rich yellow farm butter, and a generous spoonful of Pontiac Sedan, wild raspberry jam, and slunk off to my room to enjoy my feast. It was no wonder that at supper time a little later, I just pushed my insipid pale pink spaghetti and tomato sauce disinterestedly around my plate. This is all for today's reading. I sincerely hoped you enjoyed this, and it won't be a long wait before the next episode in the life of White Zulu. As now they are shorter, we're putting up 3 videos a week. I wish to thank John Moslane for his hard and dedicated work in helping me create these videos. And please visit my website at www.whitezulubook.com, where you'll find a lot of extra information about myself and plenty more photos. Thank you all very much, all of you, for listening to my story, and goodbye.